world moves fast. Your workday? Even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
It's not just something you made. It's the privilege that you get to work with your hands. It's building something that serves a purpose. Proof that you have the grit to keep going. At Timberland, we understand you take your craft seriously, and we do too, which is why our products are built to the highest quality. We put in the work so you can perfect yours, with purpose in every detail and crafted with intention. Timberland, built on craft. Visit Timberland.com to shop.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, 3 points, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire, 3 points, which I managed to get to the pub for the first time this season. The first time since the accident, Kieran. I'm still not match fit, but got to the Paulson, so it's nice to be surrounded by Palace fans who aren't losing the fucking plot. Essentially, it's just nice to be talking to normal, sensible people who just go, yeah, it's all right, it's a bit shit, but we're staying up. We're above right, and we won the FA Cup, which is the essential response to anything that's going on at the moment. How was Swade though? I mean, only 3 points for you, Kieran, but you went to see Swade. How was that? And also, somebody asked me yesterday, vis-a-vis you betting against Brighton, do you have a bet? So when you go to Swade, do you get odds that it might be a bad gig? Just so in case it is, you still get paid out.
Swade were absolutely magnificent. I've seen them on a few occasions, but they're incredibly relaxed in their skin. They've got a back catalogue to die for, and the new album's good as well. And Brett Anderson, he's from Haywards Heath, so this was when he was younger, sort of coming down to Brighton to watch music was a big thing for him. So yeah, the only band I'm aware of that has a song which features Worthing in. So yeah, they've got that as a positive. Yeah, fantastic band.
He's always slightly annoyed me, Brett Anderson, because he's one of those. Ed's a bit the same. He's one of those where he can wear anything.
Yeah,
and it looks cool on him. And I remember Brett, he had some kind of safari suit on, flared safari suit. And you go, anybody else, if I tried wearing that, Ali would have thrown me over the stairs again. But it's just on him. You just think, how is it that some men are just lucky enough to? I mean, some of the things Ed wears, you go, what are you look? Oh, yes. Anyway, it's been. I don't know how to say this, Kieran, because I'm going to start with Sheffield Wednesday. The reason I'm hesitating slightly is I've just got a Rubber Bandit song going through my head called Hipster or Hobo, which is about three lovely boys from Limerick. But the first time they came to Soho, they had a real trouble determining whether somebody was actually living on the streets or dressed like that deliberately. They wrote this brilliant song called Hipster or Hobo. Sheffield Wednesday became the first club, Kieran, to get relegated in February in English football. BBC website this morning saying they're looking out for good news. Can we give Sheffield Wednesday fans any good news, Kieran? Do we have an update?
Well, the administrator, Chris Wigfield, he has spoken to the press in the last 7 days. It's not bad news, but I think Wednesday fans are hoping for and also deserve some form of clarity, and they're not getting it. So, given that the administrators announced the preferred bidder just around about Christmas time, we're now 9 weeks further down the line, and we're getting sort of hums and hers, and I can understand the reticence of the administrators to say anything more concrete, but if it was a non-football administration and I'd announced a preferred bidder, I would expect to be that much closer to the finishing line. So is this due to the fact that there are three what appear to be senior partners as far as the preferred bidder are concerned? All appear to have their wealth and assets overseas, so that is slowing down the process as far as the EFL are concerned. Some people are saying, is this a deliberate ploy by the administrators in the EFL to push this back until May, when potentially it will come under the realm of the independent football regulator, which will have enhanced powers as of that date? I think that's a bit of a cynical view. It's in everybody's interests for this to be resolved, not least for the fact is that the administrators are on the clock, and it's costing £400 or £500 an hour for the senior staff, for each member of the senior staff to be there, and every pound that goes out of the administration potentially means that we're getting closer and closer to that rather unpleasant cut-off point in which unsecured creditors end up with less than 25% of what's owed to them. And on the basis of that, there would be a 15-point deduction next season. So certainly, the administrators are professionals. They are not dragging this out just because it's more lucrative. From their point of view, that would be professionally unacceptable, and they wouldn't go down that line. I know that. But yeah, it's not good for Wednesday. Also, when Chris Wickfield, the administrator, said there are individual players in the championship who are earning more than the first team squad that Wednesday are putting out at the weekend. I think he's trying to contextualise where the club is. Certainly that the highest earners are now off the books. They've either been transferred or they were released last summer by Chansiri, who has to take responsibility for this. But of course we get nothing from him whatsoever. So frustrating for Wednesday fans. They were magnificent at Bramall Lane. They've been through an awful lot, and they deserve something more concrete, but it's not materialised as yet.
Also, I have to say hats off to Chris Wilder, the Sheffield United manager, for his comments afterwards about the effect it's having on the town as a whole. And he's sending his thoughts to all those people whose livelihoods are being threatened by this. It's questions day, Kieran. We haven't got that many questions today, I think, because 3 of them are going to take a bit of answering. And again, did you think, Kieran, we'd run out of things to say about PSR? No, we haven't. And we're getting them in quick before we'd... Already yesterday, around the tables into Parsons Arms, people trying to come to terms with squad costs, whatever that's going to be called now. So I every now and again, producer guy tells me off for saying FFP by mistake. So I'm going to be saying PSR for the next 2 years, whatever. SCL.
Just wait until we go through the green and the red lines of SCR.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's okay. I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be there in spirit, embodied.
yeah. And whilst you nip out for a cuppa, I'll drone on.
Yeah. Our first question comes from Mark Burton. Kieran, I suspect it's not an old associate of mine, Mark Burton, who wrote Shaun the Sheep and some of the Paddington film, because of writing Shaun the Sheep and some of the Paddington film, he's got too much money to worry about anything in the world of football. He's got his feet up lighting cigars with rolled up £5 notes, basically. But this Mark Burton has a question about debt at clubs and the connection of debt with PSR figures. If, says Mark Burton, a club takes a £10 million loan from the owners, would this show as an immediate profit on the books, or is it completely separate? If this shows as an immediate profit, then what's to stop a club from getting a loan and using that for PSR? And if it isn't a profit, then I don't understand how clubs are allowed to get loans at all and have these sanctioned or approved by the EPL.
Right, Mark. A loan is money which is owed by the football club to a third party. It's completely independent of PSR because PSR is profit and loss based, and this is a balance sheet item. So profit and loss, as far as your PSR calculations are concerned, deals with the revenues generated by the clubs, and those revenues are match day, broadcast, and commercial, less the day-to-day running costs. Now, a loan is not a day-to-day running cost; it's a capital injection. So the only element of the loan which has a PSR consequence is the interest which is charged, given that the vast majority of owner loans are interest free. There is no issue here. However, there is some history of football club owners writing off their loans. And if we go back to Queen's Park Rangers in 2014, um, this is what happened because QPR were potentially under some sanctions at that point, and the owners had lent a large amount of money to the club, and then they said, "Yeah, we're not going to ask for it back." And effectively, what the club therefore did said, "Well, we're going to treat that as bonus income and
Yeah.
put it into our calculations." And on the back of that, they were charged, and it was not resolved until 2018. And ironically, my first ever communications with friend of the show and also all-round good guy Nick DeMarco came because I'd gone to Canada in 2018, and somebody leaked me the verdict on the case when it came out, which was very kind of them. So I put that on social media, and Nick got in contact and said, "Any chance of taking that down?" And as he asked nicely, and also I was a huge admirer of his work, I took it down, and that's sort of my first communications with Nick, and it was then published, I think, within the next 12, 24 hours anyway. And that ruled against QPR because it was a capital injection rather than revenue. So that's in answer to your first question, Mark. The profit, even if the loans are written off, are excluded from your PSR calculations. If it isn't a profit, then I don't understand how clubs are allowed to get loans at all. Well, again, a loan is simply a relationship between a third party and the football club. So that's completely independent of the EFL. That's why they don't have to be sanctioned or approved by the Premier League. Although we do now have these imputed interest charges, which will cease to be an issue on the 30th of June 2026, because that's when we introduce these squad cost rules, which are nothing to do with loans. So that's where we are. Clubs get loans from the owners mainly due to the fact that banks won't touch them with a barge pole for reputational reasons, and also why lend money to a loss-making industry?
So, are you implying, Kieran, that when squad cost rules come in, loans will be less likely to be made? Sorry, or will they then count as profit? What happens then to loans?
Well, the interest on the loans will now be completely excluded from the calculations. So
Right.
I think this is significantly beneficial for a club such as Manchester United that has incurred interest costs of over £1 billion since the Glazers acquired the club in 2005, and those have gone into the PSR calculations because PSR is based on all of your revenue and all of your costs, both player and non-player costs. Now, SCR is different because it just focuses on player costs. I'm going to try to get a conversation with the Premier League, who we're on very good terms with at present, because there are ways of manipulating transfer costs and shifting some of those costs into interest as well. So I'm going to go through the Premier League rulebook with a very fine tooth comb, because with the amount of hair that I've got, I don't need a regular comb that often.
I can't imagine you've ever had a comb that wasn't very fine, Kieran. Even as a boy, I can imagine you going into Boots and saying, "Have you got a very fine tooth comb, please?" Yes, Sonny, we have. Can you explain something for me, Kieran? Because I think I know the answer to this question, but not enough that I'd be confident to answer it if somebody asked me in the pub. Why is turning loans into shares the same as writing off that loan, or is it?
Conceptually, it is. If let's say that you were buying a house and you borrowed you borrowed 100 grand from yourself, and the rest you put in as equity, which seems a rather strange thing to do, but that's what we
Yeah.
got with the football club. So you got 100% of the equity. If you then wrote off the loan, all that would happen would be that your equity would increase by £100,000. So you're in exactly the same position as before.
Right.
This is the same as far as a football club concerned, provided the owner owns 100%. So let's say the owner lends the club 500 million quid, puts 100 million quid in as equity. The total investment is 600 million. If the owner then writes off the loan, all of that benefit goes to the person who owns the shares, who happens to be exactly the same person. So I've now got £600 million worth of equity, whereas previously I've got £500 million of loan and £100 million worth of equity. So that's why I've always been a fairly relaxed about owner loans for 100% owned clubs. Where it creates issues is if the owner doesn't own 100% of the shares, because what it does is it squeezes out the other shareholders in terms of the proportion of the club that is owned by those minority shareholders. And I think this was one of the issues that has been raised and has caused a bit of angst when we look at Everton, because what's happened there is that the new owners have come in and they said, we've got these loans, we're going to convert them into shares. And the other Everton shareholders, they did own 5% of the club, and now they own 0.5% of the club, which reduces the value of their shares.
I'm nodding at you wisely in a way that Ali would recognise. And if you were Ali, you'd now be saying, "What did I say in the middle of that sentence?"
I know it's quite nerdy.
And I'd be saying, "Was it get milk?" In hope every now and again it will be. Our next question, Kieran, comes from Darren. Now, you know my views on people who just give their first name, but most of the Darrens I know have been quite tough. One of them was a nutcase, so I'm not going to. Darrens, I'm going to make a new rule that Darrens don't have to give their surname, basically. But Darren says, given the constraints of Premier League profit and sustainability rules, I suspect, Kieran, while we're waiting for squad costs, whatever it's called, to come in, we're going to get a lot of PSR questions. People who still haven't got quite come to terms with it. But given the constraints of Premier League profit and sustainability rules, says Darren, on players' wages, I wonder if it's feasible for football clubs to adopt a contract structure similar to that seen in many American sports, where payments can be spread over a player's lifetime, as in the case of Bobby Bonilla of the New York Mets, who still receives over $1 million a year at the age of 61. Do you think this is a possibility? Is there any indication of this happening now? I know about the Bobby Bonilla case, Kieran, but when you first told me, I didn't quite believe it, and I'm still not entirely sure I believe it now because it just seems so unlikely.
Well, in American franchise sports, they have far more draconian wage control rules that exist within football. And that's fine, provided everybody buys into the system. But sometimes owners say, I think I can find a workaround. And for people not familiar with the Bobby Bonilla issue, was that the New York Mets wanted to had agreed with him they're going to pay him, I don't know, $80 million over a period of time. But if they'd done that over a 3 or 4 year contract, that would have meant that they would have been in breach of the cost control rules which existed in the sport. So therefore, what they've done is that instead of giving him the money over 4 years, they're going to give him the money over 20 years. And they're going to give him more money than they'd originally agreed to take into account inflation, uncertainty, and so on. And this meant, because the cost control rules were based on the cash wages being paid, the Mets were within the limits. Right. And that certainly is the case with a few other US franchise sports. I think involving one organisation, which is part owned by our very good friend Todd Bowley. And it's within the rules. So, I've always defended Chelsea with the 8 and 9 year contracts. It's within the rules. If you want to take on that risk, fill your boots. So is this a possibility as far as a professional footballer's contract is concerned? Yes, it is. But unlike US franchise sports, we have a far more fluid transfer market. So if I was trying to get a player to commit the whole of his professional career to my football club, what I would do is I'd say, I will pay you a sizable sum of money to be a professional footballer to the age of 35. And then I'm going to offer you a 25-year contract on, £2 million a year to be a club ambassador until you're 60. And this way, the player gets a lower salary as a professional player and guaranteed money until the further age. But as we know, football is a profession of great uncertainty. What happens if that player breaks a leg? What happens if that player decides that they want to go and play for Real Madrid and Real Madrid come a-knocking? All of a sudden, you're locked into, and that could be within, let's say, an 18 months' time. And you've now just committed yourself to paying £2 million a year from the ages of 35 to 60 for a player where you're not even going to get the benefits of them playing for you. So could it be the case that will operate, Darren? Yes. But I think the downside risks as far as the club is concerned, because the player can still turn and say, right, I'm now 35. I've just been playing for Real Madrid for the last 8 years. I now want my £2 million a year to be ambassador for Manchester City or Chelsea or Arsenal or Palace, whoever it's going to be. And the club will go, I'm not very happy about that, but contracts are contracts.
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS.
Is that the sort of thing then that would also deter a potential buyer? If someone was coming along to buy Palace, for example, and Palace said, well, of course you're more than welcome to look at the books, but by the way, we've promised Ismail Assar £3 million a year for the next 20 years. Would an owner then be saying, well, I'm going to buy the club, but I need to get him out of that contract? Because that's a lot of money to add to the cost of the club already, isn't it?
It is, and that's why we see reference to preferred bidders. Just sort of circling back to the Sheffield Wednesday story, the potential bidders for the club get to see all of the ongoing commitments that exist within Sheffield Wednesday. That would be the same if you were looking to buy a club. And I'll be honest, if I was on the buy side of the deal, I would say, well, okay, I've got 25 years at £2 million, which I've got, and I can't get out of that contract.
Right.
The contracts tend to be watertight.
Yeah.
I can't get out of the contract. That's 50 million quid. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to lob 50 million pounds over what I'm prepared to pay. It's a bit like when you're buying a house. Yeah, if you see, well, hold on, there's a few tiles missing on the roof, you price accordingly.
Our next question comes from Rob Fox. Rob Fox describes himself as an avid and long-suffering Nottingham Forest fan. And he says, I've obviously developed an obsession with PSR and football finance over recent years. Join the club, Rob Fox. Funny enough, a lot of Palace fans have developed an obsession with Nottingham Forest, PSR and football finance over recent years as well. My question is, says Rob Fox, if you finish higher than you had budgeted for, could you accelerate the depreciation in the player's contract to take advantage of this extra year cash and effectively build up a future reserve? It seems reasonable to me from a purely football lens, as it turns a purchase player into the same as an academy one for future PSR calculations, although it would likely be of questionable legality in a real company. I like it when somebody adds that little rider to their question. Probably not legal, but in football, who knows?
Well, Rob, this is what I describe as a Derby County reverse ferret approach. Because what Derby County did was that they did exactly what you suggested, but in reverse, in the sense that they decelerated the amortisation in the early years of the contract. And that meant that effectively all of the amortisation went into the final year of the contract, and that works provided Derby County were promoted, and Derby County weren't promoted, which had ramifications. And yeah, I understand from conversations with the secret Ram. I understand from a conversation I had with somebody connected to the club was that they had players who had contracts which were due to expire on the 30th of June. Let's say it's due to expire on the 30th of June, 2018. And those players, the manager and the coaching staff said, yeah, we don't want to renew the contracts. But then the suits came in and said, well, we can't do that because we're recognising all of the amortisation in the final year of the contract. What we're going to do instead, and we're going to override what the coaching staff want, we're going to give those players a contract extension because it kicks down the lane, the amortisation in the final year. Which meant that Derby County fans are okay. Why are we giving him a contract extension? He's not ripped up the trees this season. Yeah. And of course, they tended to be the highest paid players in the first place because they got the highest amortisation. So it caused a lot of confusion as far as the fans were concerned. It caused frustration as far as the coaches were concerned as well. So what Rob is doing is suggesting the opposite to this. Now, if you take a look at the EFL handbook, it does now very strictly say that amortisation has to be applied evenly across the years. I don't know who wrote to them pointing this out was a potential anomaly a couple of years before they introduced this rule. But you can't therefore accelerate the amortisation. But what you can do, and in my view this would be very difficult, but not impossible, it depends how compliant the auditors are, what you can say is that the player's market value has collapsed. We're looking to sell the player, and what you do is you get a friendly agent, or you get perhaps a friendly other club with whom you want to do a couple of deals. So, that player there, he's only worth 4 million. He's in the books at 10, and then you write down. That's called an impairment. Right. So it is the equivalent of accelerating the amortisation fee. When you take a look at the small print of club accounts, they do say that players who have suffered injury, players that are not in the first team, they do this. And I remember, I think it was in 2021 or 2022, Chelsea had an acceleration of amortisation charge of £78 million. I think that was mainly to do with Kepa, the goalkeeper, and Romelu Lukaku, who scored loads of goals for Chelsea. I never quite understood why there seemed to be a bit of bad feeling towards him. He certainly delivered, but he left, or he went on loan, and they accelerated the amortisation charge. So can it be done, Rob? Yes. on the benefit of getting a couple of higher places up the Premier League, this is where it becomes counterintuitive, because if you've done better than expected, how can you say that the player's value has gone down? Unless you go and target one or two players who are on the periphery of the squad. So yeah, it's not impossible. Does it happen? Absolutely. Will I name the clubs involved when I next see you in the pub, Rob? When Brighton play Forest next season, I'll meet you beforehand and I'll tell you which clubs are involved.
That could be one of the best championship games of the season. Are you saying, Kieran, that before this mysterious person, that we have no idea who this mysterious person is, even though I could see you laughing when you said this mysterious, are you saying that before this mysterious person got involved, the EFL were planning to have an amortization where you could go, I'll tell you what, we'll do 17% one season, 28% the next season, and then you went, might be an idea. No, sorry, mysterious person went, might be an idea to spread it evenly over 5 years. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that mysterious person wrote to the EFL, quoting chapter and verse from accounting text.
Did
he? Or she.
Or she.
Yeah,
or they. Yeah, okay. That's, as soon as the words mysterious person, I don't, in any context, you spring into my mind. Oh, that'd be cute.
I'm the least mysterious person on the
planet. Clive Steed has our penultimate question, and I want to say thank you to Clive Steed, because Clive has asked a question that I've wanted to ask for a long time, but I didn't. I'm not saying it's because I just don't know whether this is a thing or it's a theoretical thing, and it's just I'm interested in the answer, but I thought maybe it was such an obvious thing that I didn't want to ask it. So I'm pleased that Clive has done so. So Clive says, when a club gets demoted and a new club replaces them, Kieran often mentions that the Premier League shares are swapped. Now, how is the value of these shares accounted for or written down? Or do they, this is what I've always wanted, do they actually, this share certificate, does it actually exist? Or is it a notional thing?
No, it very much exists. If you go to the if you go to Companies House, which I have been known to do, and there is something called a confirmation statement, which is published each year, which physically lists the shareholders. That is updated normally. It's normally updated. You normally see it updated in Companies House in July, but it will give you the physical dates at which shares in the Football Association Premier League Limited, and also there's a similar space at Companies House for the Football League Limited. It will show you the names of the shareholders, and it will show the dates at which those shares were transferred. Now, under the constitution of both the Premier League and the EFL, they have to be transferred at face value, which is £1 each.
Oh.
Even though they have a market value. So let's... I'm not being rude here to Wolves fans, but I was on Odds Checker this morning.
Yeah.
Because there is an element within the Brighton fan base who are still believing that the club could get relegated. And I pointed out, well, if that is the case, you can get 100 to 1.
Yeah.
And therefore, I would say, I'm not a financial advisor, and I don't encourage people to gamble. So if you are that convinced that is the case, surely it's worth a small nibble at prices at that value. But I also looked at Wolves. Wolves relegation odds, and they're 500 to 1 on to get relegated. So you put on £500, you make £1 if it comes through. So probably not worth it. So let's say that Wolverhampton Wanderers, or WW9 brackets 1990 Limited. I really shouldn't know these figures, these names of individual football club companies. Should I? As Kevin will be able to confirm that I'm not looking at any notes when I'm coming up with this as well. But let's assume that Wolverhampton Wanderers are relegated. They will become an ex-shareholder and they will become a shareholder of the EFL on that particular date, and they will do that at a transfer price of £1. It doesn't mean that the shares are worth £1, that they are worth an absolute fortune, but under the Constitution, you're only allowed to transfer them from one club to another, because effectively what you're saying is that Wolves are going to swap their share with, let's say, Coventry City, or Cov City Limited, and that's the way that it will work. It's a bit like a player swap. You're doing a share swap.
I don't normally have much sympathy for any club's fans yesterday, but you play quite well. You get a player sent off undeservedly after Will Hughes. After Will Hughes should have been sent off for 2 terrible tackles. You miss a penalty and then Palace score in the last minute. Now we're definitely any lingering optimism would have been destroyed by that.
Yes.
So will 2 questions then. Will Coventry, if Coventry do get promoted, will they then get a little piece of paper that goes in the chairman's toilet to say you are? I certify you are a member of the Football League, the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean it will be done by email, but in effect, because Cov City will have to be audited, and one of their investments, one of their assets is a share in the Football Association Premier League Limited. So they've got to be able to evidence that. So yeah, they will have physical certification to that effect. It won't be done with a quill and sort of like Hogwarts writing. I decided to brave the first Harry Potter movie yesterday with my granddaughters because I thought they're just about old enough. It's quite, and it is absolutely brilliant. But there's an awful lot of quills that are being used in that film.
Do you know what? It takes an accountant to point that out. Of all the things you could point out in that Harry Potter, which I love, I mean, it brings back very happy memories. But only you would say it's too many quills. It's just, what do you think of that film, Kieran? You'd have been terrible at the BAFTAs.
I'd given it a 5-star, but not one for too many quills.
Yeah, well, that film about Shakespeare, everyone's raving about too many quills. Just way too many quills.
I've just got to say, whilst we're on the BAFTAs, I swear, if you've not seen it, is one of the most heartwarming films you will ever see. And the guy that won the Best Actor, if you get a chance, it's absolutely brilliant. It's about a young man growing up with Tourette's and how he's come through all of the challenges. And yeah, you might have a quick sob because it's just one of those films that it's great to see people having to deal with adversity, and also just it's the type of film that could only be made in England and Scotland because we've got that slightly maverick element to us in this country.
I'm a South London working class bloke, Kieran. I quiet any film. 101 Dalmatians. I'm off halfway through. Even though I know it's going to end happily. Ali's never let me know to watch Bambi. She said you'll be a mess. You can't. You're not allowed to see it. Final question, obviously, is how much have you lumped on Brighton going down at 500 to 1?
Well, I put my money on at the start of the season.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's fine. Our last question, Kieran, from Matt Spence, is of a similar stamp to the Clive Steed question because it's a fact that I tend to throw around willy-nilly in the hope that I'm never actually challenged on the fact and why the fact is a fact. But Matt Spence's question is this: why do all contracts seem to end in June? Wouldn't it be beneficial, says Matt Spence, for example, for older players coming to the end of their career to have their contracts end in January, so needy clubs might be inclined to pay above market wages for a free transfer in that window to cover mid-season injuries, avoid relegation or push on for promotion, European place, etc.?
That's a fair question, Matt. If I was an older player coming to the end of my career, I would like the certainty of being paid between January and June. So it is really sort of custom and practice as far as clubs are concerned. The transfer window opens at the start of July or towards the end of June, so it gives clubs the opportunity. Even those players who are released they are normally paid up to the end of June, even if they've sort of physically left the building before then. I think as far as the National League is concerned, however, their contracts, because I remember we did have somebody from the National League who pointed out that they're not on 1 year contracts, they're actually on 10-month contracts.
Yeah.
So from a player's point of view, and this is there's a lot of focus on the remuneration of Premier League football players, and nobody's denying that they are handsomely rewarded, and the players will say so themselves. But I always say, nobody forces clubs to give them those contracts. They're there because they deserve it, because that's what the market dictates. The market dictates at League Two level. The market dictates at Scottish Championship level that you're on far less money than that. You are also tending to be on much shorter contracts. So if I was, could I offer a player a short-term contract that ended in January? Yes. Would that player want the certainty of a contract from another club that ended at the 30th of June? Almost certainly. So it's done really to protect the interests of the players. And also, what happens if that works the other way? Let's say that you've got a 34 or 35-year-old striker. Let's call him Wani Delbecq, for example, and he's knocking them in.
Yeah.
You don't want that player to be able to walk away from the club for nothing on the 1st of January. So there's an element of self-interest for both parties here. It gives the players a degree of certainty, and it allows the clubs to plan for the season as well.
When you want your spring break to feel like... and your kids' pool day to feel like... and your hotel bed to feel like... ooh, and room service to feel like... Because at Hilton, hospitality feels like...
Your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
It matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay.
My day kicks off with a refreshing Celsius energy drink, then straight to the gym. Pre-K pickup, back home to meal prep. Time for my fire station shift. One more Celsius, gotta keep the lights on. When the 3-alarm hits, I'm ready. Celsius. Live, fit, go. Grab a cold, refreshing Celsius at your local retailer or locate now at Celsius.com.
I've said it before, Kieran, and I'm going to say it again. I would put Wani Delbecq in the England squad. I would win. And nobody's really looking forward to this World Cup, Kieran, but if it takes our mind off the transfer window for 4 weeks, I really can't wait, because it's the only thing Sky's got to compete with the World Cup on every other channel. The transfer window in July. Shut up. Thank you to everyone who's joined the Price of Football Club. If you'd like to join that club too and get every episode a day earlier than everyone else, ad-free listening and invite to our monthly Q&A sessions, bonus episodes and more, go to our website, priceoffootball.com. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and you can find us on YouTube. And if you'd like to buy one of our books or a Price of Football t-shirt, you can find the details on that same website, priceoffootball.com. We'll be back on Thursday with our regular news pod. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, thanks as always, folks. It's great that the club members are so supportive of the show. We hope we give you plenty back. You do effectively get a bit of management consultancy for nothing when we do the live sessions. You can throw any question at myself or Kevin, and we always do our best to answer. We caveat that in that we are pub lawyers. So just in case we give the wrong advice. But there's another way that you can support the show, and this won't cost you a bean. It will cost you 30 seconds of your time. Just pop along. Just pop along to the app that you use to listen to the Price of Football, and just give us a little review. Doesn't matter what you say. By all means, you could even say you would rather have the show presented by William Shakespeare and Danny Dyer, who is about to launch a programme on how he's going to save the holiday home industry, which is, I think it's his attempt to do Clarkson's Farm.
It is. There are already, as Ali pointed out to me, some continuity errors in that. Obviously, it takes place over a long time, but in some scenes in the trailer, he's completely unshaven. In some, he's got a Mexican moustache, and in some, he's got a full beard. I've got a lot of time for Danny Dyer.
I love Danny Dyer.
He's actually. I went to a West Ham game. He's a genuinely nice bloke, and he's really into the art and drama. He's a massive fan of Harold Pinter. He just knows all this stuff about Harold. I mean, he also knows that he's making his money by being Danny Dyer professionally. People would be very unhappy. It's you're having this conversation with him. Somebody comes into the bar. It's like, all right, treacle. But you haven't said the word treacle for an hour when you were talking about Harold Pinter. William everybody needs to learn about William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare, Danny Dyer is one of your better. That'd be a cracker. That's wasted on a podcast, and that's wasted on Sky.
It probably would, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.